if you're a Christian, you seriously need to consider home education. Not because home education saves a child, but it's because we know that a public school environment certainly is not a godly atmosphere. So often we approach a book, and it's a history book, and we just start reading all these facts and figures, but in our mind, we can't put it in context. And so for kids, we're trying to get them to understand all these facts and figures, but we don't teach them how to apply that knowledge, and that's what I think a timeline does. I think finding the right interest for a student is important. An apologetics course, it's elementary apologetics. That's a teacher guide. It covers 6 books. By the end of summer, the teacher guide will include all 8 books. Master Books app users and the Moms of Master Books, hope you're having a good afternoon. I think I am. I'm here. So we're having a good day. Hey, if you're before we start the question and answer, one thing I'd love to say is, if you are not in the Master Books app, we would love you to have you join the Master Books app. We're beginning to build and see community build there and engagement. Really enjoy that. We've added some groups. Of course, there's a chapel in the app, which there's a devotional. If you have prayer requests, we firsthand as a family know how valuable the prayers of this group are, because there was a beautiful picture that was given to us. Somehow we saw a picture of a child. She had the language lessons book in front of her, and before she started the lesson, she was praying for Kristen. That was like, to know that children are interceding and praying. We would encourage you as well to participate in that, your prayer request. But if you are a praying family and your children are praying for other homeschool families, we pray that you would post testimonies, that you would pray and just encourage in that group, because that's just awesome. And I want my children to see the power of God. My kids have gotten to see and witness miracles where God has intervened and performed a miracle and shown his grace when it wasn't deserved. And so the chapel is awesome. We have an RV road schooler section. So if you're interested in road schooling or you're a road schooler, we'd love you to join that and show us out your front window. What your front window scene looks like. Mine doesn't change every morning, but I'm sure if you're a road schooler or a world schooler, it does. So we've got that group. We've got a special needs group set up. We've got military families. I know we have a lot of military families who are in this group and watch. In the app, there's a special group now devoted just to other military families. And then one that I'm excited about is we have a hashtag photo group. And if you see the catalog, or you've seen our catalogs, or you see the marketing that we do, we have we love pictures of your kids using Master Books curriculum. And we also have some very talented photographers in the group that just get lighting and scenes and the whole thing. So we have this group set up now where if you're interested in taking photos and learning how to do some of that, it's just a place to connect with other people who enjoy taking pictures of their kids doing school and how to hone those skills, lighting, what equipment they're using, just some tips and that type of thing. So sometimes we see these awesome pictures of kids, but there's, the lights coming in at the wrong angle and it's just blurry or something else. So just kind of a way that we can help kind of let you know what we look for with pictures and help with that. So the app is awesome. We'd encourage you to join and be part of that community. And then I'd also like to let you know today the Math Teaching Companion came in. So if you had that, it's available now to order. And Math Lesson 6 is also in stock. It should be available. If not, we'll get Josh to make sure it's active on the website. I think it came a day early, and I'm going to try to get Kristen to sit down with me and talk about that. So we have some question and answer both in the app and Facebook, and so let's get on it.
All right, I saw him jump in the Facebook Live real quick. Carrie asked, what do you do if you're starting a 6th grader in master books for history and science so they will be on track for high school classes? What do you suggest we start with?
Well, in 6th grade, you have a lot of freedom. So I would say if you look at our scope and sequence, there are courses like the zoology course would be a good course. Big Book of Earth and Sky would be that. You could do God, Design, Science. Any of those would work. Usually 7th, 8th grade is kind of an earth science, general science type approach. We have General Science 1, General Science 2 is what you would transition to. Or we also have the Applied Engineering, which is a course in biomimicry and how God uses amazing creativity in nature and how scientists copy that. And that's a great book as well for junior high students. Then beyond that, for preparing for beyond that, usually 9th grade is biology, 10th grade is a chemistry, then followed by physics and something like that. So at 6th grade, you have a lot of room to kind of still be creative and explore what is a student interested in and find something that you're both interested in.
Yeah. Kasha asked, what elective would you recommend for a 4th grader? He's already done More Than Words 1, Elementary Apologetics, and the Elementary Morning Basket. I was considering going into More Than Words 2, but I wasn't sure about doing them back to back.
I think More Than Words 2 is probably different enough that you could do those back to back. Electives for elementary students is something that we'll be bringing forward in the future. We don't have a depth there yet. In some ways, I think allowing just room for discovery or reading works as well. We don't have a formalized solution, Kasha, that I would really have to suggest to you. I know books like God is Really, Really Real and The Big Thoughts for Little Thinkers, some of those things, and just having discussions, doing more research. The morning basket type concept is probably something I'll do. One other thing I would suggest is Master Books has a wide range of science curriculum. Some of those you could use the science as an elective because you have your core, like let's say you're using God's Design, you could use Big Book of Earth and Sky and do that as an elective. But those courses are so rich as well in Scripture and in the beginning God and biblical apologetics and science that supports the Bible, that having a little bit more depth or range there, you could certainly do that and reinforce some of those solid concepts. We have so many science curriculums available, once you get to 4th grade up, that you almost could double up a little bit that way and get some real range.
Over in the app, Mike or Narita Kendrick asked, a friend asked me about the difference or comparison of language lessons for living education versus Queen's homeschool language lessons. Any thoughts on that? Thanks.
Yeah, Queen's is a Charlotte Mason approach, but I think that language lessons for living education is much more robust. There's a lot more to it. Kristen would be a better one to probably answer the differences, but I think it's Charlotte Mason influenced, but there's enough other application and critical thinking that's included in that. It's using some Charlotte Mason methods, but then it also has, it's purposely designed to build stamina and lay a solid foundation and get the grammar in there. So I think I would just say it's more robust than what you would get from any of those Charlotte Mason. There's a couple. What is it? I know My Father's World sells a version of it too. And a lot of what you're going to find in there is in language lessons for living education, but you're going to see more.
Awesome. Over in the Facebook Live feed, Don asked, you may have already shared this before, but I'm really curious what kind of history timeline worked best while teaching your kiddos?
I think, any standard timeline, if you can put a timeline on a wall, right, it can be just simple as a strip of paper that says 0 to today. And as you study topics, just kind of create a scrapbook. Timeline doesn't have to be that complicated. I think sometimes we do overcomplicate it. And I know there was another question that came in. And so like America's Story, for instance, there's some timeline included in that in the teacher guide of America's Story. We are, if you saw the catalog, there's a pack going in, a supplementary pack that's available of timeline images. And basically what these are just images from within the book that as you read about it, you could take these, instead of cutting up your book, you could take these sheets, cut the image out, and put it on the timeline. What we're trying to do with the timeline is just understand context. For most people, let's say the Bible, if I try to say to you, okay, we know creation was here, and we know Adam had to be after creation, and we know since he was the first man, everybody after that comes here. Jesus is probably, quite a ways out here. But where does Moses, what about Moses and Abraham? Where do they fit into the scope? And where is Haggai and Jeremiah? And how do they fit in? What about David and Solomon and Ruth and Esther? And where do these people fit in? And I find that going through, because the Bible is arranged not necessarily chronologically, it's arranged more as a library. I find there's some benefit to just like say, let's create a timeline of the Bible. Here's creation, here's Adam, here's Noah, and as we study different things, we just make a little piece of paper, do a drawing, cut out something, print something off from the internet or whatever, and put it up on the wall, and that gives us context. So then as we read scripture, we realize that when they're referring to the prophets of the Old Testament, or to, the promises given to Abraham and his descendants being Jacob, Isaac, all of Joseph, all of that, then we begin to understand, oh, this is how this whole story unfolds. So often we approach a book, and it's a history book, and we just start reading all these facts and figures, but in our mind, we can't put it in context. Where does World War II fit into the Korean War versus, the Revolutionary War versus the Civil War? What did that look like? And it's, how many wars have there been in the last couple hundred years? What does that span look like? And so for kids, we're trying to get them to understand all these facts and figures, but we don't teach them how to apply that knowledge. And that's what I think a timeline does. That was a long answer.
Good job. If I understand Carrie's follow-up question correctly about history, she's the one that asked about her 6th grader. She says, it says American Story 3, but we didn't do 1 or 2. I think she's asking if they could start in American Story 3, or if it's dependent upon book 1 and 2.
No, it's more of a time period. So, it's more, the more the modern age of history. So you really don't need to know. You could jump in right there at that level. You don't have to go back to 1 or 2. It's nice. You could do 1 or 2, or you could just even do those as like a read aloud type thing. But yeah, you could jump in.
Okay. To the original post, when do we get to have a peek at the new pre-K? That was from Melissa Capps. And then Ashley chimed in and said, yes, this is my question as well, or at least the contents. Is there cutting, pasting, letters, numbers, coloring, Bible?
I don't know. I know they're working on it. I know Carrie Bailey, if she's watching or watches, can jump in. But I haven't seen a copy on anybody's desks to steal yet.
Usually you're pretty good at that.
Yeah, they changed the file system.
Probably because you kept going in and stealing people's
stuff. I don't have access now. My fingerprint doesn't work anymore on the editor's door. I think they nixed my access. But yeah, I'll try to get a sample on that. We've got a couple of other ones that we're going to talk about now that are in stock. And then I know there's a push on the stepping stones to get that out. And because convention season is coming. So hopefully within the next couple weeks, I'll try to find a way to get kind of a bootleg copy.
Awesome. In the live stream for Facebook, Ashley said, will you guys have a sale in August when, to my knowledge, typical public school starts?
No, we always offer, it's 20% off individual items, 26% off sets. 3 or more qualifying sets bumps you up to a 30% discount. If you live in the contiguous U.S., the free shipping on orders over $75. That's like our standard rate at conventions. It's our catalog price at masterbooks.com. We run a 1-day only sale in December. At least we have the last 2 years where we do we bump everything and say those prices apply. You get an additional 20%. That sale is come and gone. So right now, these prices are good for the rest of the show.
Awesome. Back to the original post. Kay had asked, what are some things I can do with my toddler? He is a quick learner and loves activities, songs, books, and pictures. What would you recommend?
With what? I'm sorry. I got distracted.
What are some things I can do with my toddler? He is a quick learner and loves activities, songs, books, pictures.
Yeah, I would recommend just buying and reading books together. Play and reading books. You know, our stance, and there's a lot of different ones, but I've seen some really good posts recently, even people saying the scientific research, somebody that was a developmental psychologist posted on one of the threads and said, the research is indicating that the best thing we can do for our kids is play with them, let them develop imagination and creativity, read to them, you know, and discuss things. It's just interacting with them. So some of the books that we have for younger students, I would just recommend that alongside, you know, Stepping Stones and Simply K, which are more developmental programs helping to build those skills as well. But yeah, I think I would recommend just teach them how to be kids.
Awesome. Over in the app.
Can I say, keep them off technology. The older I get, the more I realize what a terrible disservice technology is to all of us. Wouldn't you agree with me?
I would, but that sounded like you were calling me out or something. Wouldn't you agree with me? Yes, I would. Amanda, over in the app, that threw me off because I'm reading this, but I see myself and I see there's a lot of us, a lot of screens, and it threw me off. Amanda said hi from Australia. I can't believe I'm finally watching live. Hi, Amanda. Glad you were able to catch us.
What would you say to an Australian? Hey, mate?
I say no all the time. No. So in honor of you, I'm going to read this next one in an Australian accent, and then you can rate my accent. Here we go. Hannah said, hey, y'all. I think that's the Australian.
That's Arkansas.
I'm currently going through Adventures in Creation with my first grader, but I'm considering using the Life series next year because Adventures in Creation seems to be not as in-depth as my son is yearning for. Can you compare the two?
That was kind of close. That was good.
Now you can rate my accent. Pretty sure that's...
That was good.
Did you even get the question?
No, because I was like, I'm sorry. We can do it again in a regular voice.
You just switched to Australia. Do it again in a regular voice. Hannah Madeline asked, hey y'all, I'm currently going through Adventures in Creation with my first grader, but I'm considering using the Life series next year because Adventures in Creation seems not to be as in-depth as my son is yearning for. Can you compare the two?
The life science for beginners is extremely is I think simpler. But if you go to life science for God's design, that's designed for like grades 3 through 8, so you can get a lot more robust content there. Adventures in Creation was designed for your typical first grade student. Let's Talk Science, which is that series. The next series for physical science, I think, will be a lot more challenging because now you're going from first to second grade, which developmentally is a lot more capable too. So yeah, I would definitely, the previews for the Let's Talk Science, Adventures in Physical Science, when they go up, I would recommend checking that because I think you may see that there's going to be a lot more hands-on type science. In first science, you're really getting an understanding for, you know, the creator. It's God, and it's he's the one who did this, and this is how science works, and you're laying that foundation.
Over in the Facebook live stream, Carissa asked, I have a child going through basic language skills right now. She's doing well, but I want to go slow with her. When language lessons one comes out, will it be different enough that we could go through that right after basic language skills?
Yeah, some of the same content is there, but there's some stuff that's added to be robust. I mean, when she finishes basic language skills, technically she's going to be able to go into language lessons level 2. But if you wanted to, there's enough, you know, you could, if you thought she needed reinforcement or whatnot, she wouldn't recognize a lot of the content, I don't think, because it's laid out in a new format. And then there's things like picture studies and that type of thing that's in there that will give it more of a robust.
Awesome. And Tonya asked, has Master Books considered going to NPE conference in, I'm assuming, Kansas City?
We've been there. I don't believe anybody got invited to speak. So the way we work is there's some conventions we can drive to that we do, and we do those in-house. And then there are conventions that if Israel Wayne or Brian Young, Brian's been invited, I think, to MPE a couple years. If they're invited, they'll go and do the booth for us. And so we send them everything, and they run a Master Books booth as our representative. So yes, we've been there. We will go as long as somebody has an invitation, but it's hard for somebody here to make these trips and be out of the office a week. You know, if I go and Kristen goes, Kristen and I will do 2 shows this year. We'll do Nashville and we'll do Rogers. But when you take 2 weeks out of our life and put us on the road, that's 2 weeks that projects get delayed, that things like this don't happen. And so it's too much of a stress.
In the Facebook Live, Jen asked, this may have been answered before with language lessons. When kids are writing sentences and stories, should I correct all the errors, i.e. spelling, punctuation, and so on? I think that's in the previous video we've done this morning.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's a really good question for when I have Kristen on, because I think, and I know for anybody who's watching, if you've read the Writing Strands Teaching Companion, he doesn't encourage really going hard about correcting the sentences. It's more giving them tips and pointers, really encouraging them when they do well, but not making it all about the negative things that they didn't do in their writing. You know, sometimes we can kind of we want adult sentences from 1st, 2nd, and 3rd graders, as opposed to just really guiding them with encouragement in the direction they should go, like I do.
Amanda never commented on my accent, so hopefully we didn't scare her away.
She probably now thinks you're from New Zealand or something, and where's Ray Comfort's from New Zealand, Ken Ham's from Australia, and so their accent sounds alike, but they're both offended if you say.
Oh, so I'm sorry if I offended you, Amanda. Awesome. Gina Mudd is on here. She said, can I just say that the layout of the new catalog is phenomenal. I love how all the book cover images are shown, and it's just amazing. As a visual thinker and learner, this is just the best.
Yes, the catalog is awesome. Props to Brittany and Felicia, the team that helped put that together, and all of you that provided images and gave us permission to use your images, man. They are awesome.
Awesome. In the original post, Mallory asked, will there be any additional morning basket options or changes to existing morning baskets?
Yeah, we're looking at the morning basket. Anna W. had a good recommendation of an animal-based morning basket. I like that idea, but we've got it's bothering me. Morning baskets aren't in the catalog. So yeah, we'll be announcing a morning basket, I'm sure. But it's kind of difficult to keep coming up with morning baskets ideas when we do flash sales and everything else, and it limits what we can offer. So I'd love to see some morning basket schedules that go along with books, you know, mix and match type thing. So more will come on that. That's not a done deal.
Awesome. Another question from that one. Melissa Jones asked, plans for Adventures in Creation Volume 2?
Yep, it's Adventures in Physical Science. It is in-house right now, being reviewed, ready to go to design. Hopefully should be available in April.
Beth said, thank you so much for doing your live in the afternoon. Due to doing school in the mornings, wasn't able to watch this morning's live. Also, thank you for the math video. Anyways, my question for today is easy. My grandson enjoyed the Atlas and Passports of the World so much. I saw in the new catalog one for America. When will we be able to order that one?
I know that's in process. So the goal is to have that by the busy season in summer, which, you know, August. So I would expect to see that June or August, because I know that they're working hard to get that course done.
Sarah said, my son is a young 5th grader. He's 10, will be 11 in June. He struggles to stay focused during schoolwork, which we are working on. My question is, what science and history would be better for this type of kid? I'm thinking for next year, so next year would be 6th grade.
Big Book of Earth and Sky is one that's a little bit more, it doesn't require quite as much focus as, say, I think a God's Design. Anybody who's done some courses can weigh in. I think finding the right interest for a student is important. That, you know, if they're interested in animals, go the zoology direction. If they're interested in, like, if you live in this area, tornadoes are kind of interesting for our family now that we're hiding in a closet every other week in the spring. So the weather book or the astronomy, those type of courses, I would go more in that direction. And the other thing that I would just say, and I'm not saying it's in this case, but in my own personal life and in relating to my children, I said it earlier, but screen time, really, we're getting so used to being on a screen all the time. And it's getting harder and harder. Our brains are getting rewired to have less attention, and we need dopamine hits more frequently. And for our kids then to say, okay, you can go play games for an hour where you're getting this solid hit, or you can go watch video games or YouTube videos, and then switch over to, now you're going to focus on this page for an hour or 20 minutes. It's insane. It's hard. And I find even like the reason I started researching it more is I've always enjoyed reading books, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, I have a hard time even reading a page without looking over to see what's going on in the Moms of Master Books or in the Master Books app. And so I'm having to discipline myself now to set my phone away and really try to go into a deeper place of thinking. So not saying that's the case here. I just went on a tangent because it's kind of what I do.
We've all come to expect it. Over in the app, Christine asks, if I start with Adventures in Creation, should I stick with that series or switch between God's Design?
It's up to you. I think Adventures in Creation, I love the new Adventures in Creation Physical, or the new Adventures in Physical Science. I think that that's going to be a really good series. I would probably go there because the jump from there up to God's Design for Life is kind of a big one. So I would probably, if it were me, I would stay with Adventures in Physical Creation.
Awesome. Don asks, is there any kind of worksheets or teacher guides for answers for kids?
Yeah, there's an apologetics course. It's elementary apologetics, and that's a teacher guide. It covers 6 books. By the end of summer, the teacher guide will include all 8 books.
Amanda said your tangents are usually exactly what she needs to hear, so.
Yay.
M. Faith asks, when are your biggest sales to buy a full schedule worth of curriculum?
December. If we run a sale, any kind of a large scale sale. In fact, last December, it just about buried us. We sold as much in the one day as we've done some months.
Everybody was in the warehouse.
Everybody, the president, the CFO.
The president's wife came in.
Yeah, there was bodies everywhere for 2 weeks.
In the original post, Kay asked, I'm encouraging families in my church to homeschool. Many are in public schools, either not completely sold or scared and don't know where to start. I want to help them transition over. I'm a licensed teacher and gave up teaching in public schools. What are some tools I can give them and read for myself to give them more knowledge on the subject? Thanks.
Education Does God Have an Opinion by Israel Wayne. The Answers for Homeschoolers book, it typically addresses the critics and different arguments people have, like what about socialization, that type of thing. I think if you come from a public school setting where you're a teacher, your personal testimony is very strong. But if you endorse a book like Education Does God Have an Opinion, and when you read that, that's kind of a thesis work almost of, if you're a Christian, you seriously need to consider home education. Not because home education saves a child, but it's because we know that a public school environment certainly is not a godly atmosphere, and what students learn in worldview and the seeds that are planted, just what is God's opinion on education? And so I would recommend that highly. If there's anybody in the group that could grab that link and post it into the feed, it'd be awesome.
Awesome. Over in the Facebook Live, Krista says hello. Hello.
Hi.
And then that was Facebook. And then in the app, Anna said, I'm a super fan of Carrie Lindquist. God has truly blessed her with sharing the gospel clearly in her courses. I agree.
She has an awesome father.
And an awesome sister. On the original post, Michelle asked, has the teacher guide for Stovall's world history been revised like the teacher guide for American history was, or just the student book?
Yes, the American history for high school, the Stovall series. Both of those books are being revised. World is actually, we're adding in the Henry Morris So Noted series. The study of Genesis is being added into that, which we're excited about. It's been brought into color, so now both of those books are going to be color. Those will be available here this spring, and they're not available yet. But even the American history is being upgraded as well. Even though we did the teacher guide, we're updating the student book and the teacher guide again. So I think those are going to be the changes to that. I'm really excited about.
She said also, is there an estimated date for when the previews for the updated history books will be available on Masterbooks website?
Yeah, I know I'm bringing home samples for Kristen to look at every day. I think they're up to like chapter 35. Is that what he said? I think it was 35. I think, well, I don't know. We're close. So it should be, you should start to see some of the previews within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Right. Over in the app, Desiree said, Carrie's sister is super. Thank you. Christine, I love Desiree. I do stuff like that all the time and he gets after me. I started doing happy shoulders. Anyways, Christine asked, is it a bad idea to public school and homeschool at the same time? That's over in the app.
Because you asked. Scripture says not to place our children under the counsel of the ungodly. And when I place my children under the counsel of somebody who does not believe in a full gospel message, meaning that God is the creator of all, that he had an intended purpose, that man stumbled from that, man is not essentially good, but that we have a sin nature and we need a savior to redeem us. And that all of history is his story showing his redemptive purposes in creation. When we approach life that way and we approach education that way, we develop a worldview very differently than a humanistic worldview that says man is at the center of all. Maybe if I believe in God or a God or the universe, it will serve me as opposed to me serving it. That's the education system. To place our children under that counsel. Some children survive it. Some children don't. Some children don't survive homeschooling, but is spiritually. But here's the deal. Seeds are being planted. And when you look at our society right now, 2/3 of children, after they've graduated in their first year, are leaving the Christian faith. That's a serious problem. If I said right now, if your child has a 66% chance of death, what would you do to prevent that? Well, spiritual death is more serious than physical death. We know that because we have we live on in eternity. And so I'm most concerned about my children's spiritual health before I am their physical health. You know what? They'll get jobs. They'll survive the 60 to 80 years that they have to live here on earth. But how are they going to survive in eternity if they don't have spiritual health, if they don't understand the need for Christ Jesus in their life? So this isn't, to me, public school, academics, whatever. It's not, that's important. Spiritual health, developing a solid foundation spiritually is so critical because these kids are going into a world that the moment they step out the door, it does everything in its power to steal the seeds that have been planted. And the seeds in public school are certainly not seeds that say, you know what, we have a need for Christ Jesus, that's our only hope. That's not what we're hearing. And when you look at it's not just the education system and the teachers, it's the influences. The kids that they're sitting next to, and the kids on the bus. And it's really hard when your prime hours, right? They get on a bus at 7:30 in the morning and they get off the bus at 3. So I get them in the morning where I'm spending my whole time trying to get them ready. Then I spend my evening hours when I'm burnout. I'm trying to get supper ready, do whatever. Probably, how much time can I really counter that amount of time that was spent? And the influences that have been placed. And the older I get and the longer I've been a dad, the more I realize that the seeds I planted 10 years ago do bear fruit. This very morning, we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, Brittany hears a song by a band that I used to play on the way to church because I wanted them to understand the beat that I wanted to be played in the worship service. And she's like,
I get it,
I get it. It's my whole upbringing right there in this song. And I'm like, oh. So it happens. Take it seriously. Take it seriously from an old man. I haven't quite got all my gray yet and old, but just take it seriously. The seeds that we plant into our children's lives bear fruit. Okay.
Awesome. Carrie in the original post asks, what advice do you have for a struggling reader? My 4th grade son is a very kinesthetic learner and really struggles with reading. He's doing language lessons 4.
Okay. Of course, you have to identify, are there any issues, learning issues, and I think you don't need to be quick to do that, but just that's a possibility. Another can be focus, right? Again, look at is there screen time issues, because that can affect the brain's ability as well. Beyond that, I would say just allowing them practice. Let them find books that they're interested in that are they're going to start wanting to read. I notice it's like the moment our students kind of find the library, like all of a sudden they just take an interest in reading, and we see those skills jump really quickly. So giving them access, if they're interested in sports, let them read some biographies of some decent sports people, or if they're interested in whatever, kind of let it go that direction and give them a little bit of insight, and then give them a little bit of praise, right? Reward the behavior you want. So when you see them reading and you see them, ask them questions about it, engage them on it, and help give them the dopamine hit that says, when I read, I get educated, and when I get educated, I'm interesting to talk to, and when I'm interesting to talk to, I get attention, and that's what we all want as humans. So it kind of helps build that as well. I'm sure there's much more complicated answers to that question, but that's my answer.
Over in the app, Joanna said, hi from Queensland, Australia. It's nice to actually be watching live. I hope you caught my Australian accent earlier, because Amanda kind of bailed and didn't let me know how I did. But I think why we have so many people joining from Australia today is because we're doing it in the afternoon, so technically it's morning there.
Yeah.
I'm right.
Yeah, we'd love to know if this time works.
There's been a few people that have chimed in.
We may alternate sometimes. Yeah,
right.
It worked for us.
Yeah. Over on the original post, there's a few questions in this one. So Christina said, we are currently doing Foundations 5 and Math Lessons 1 with a late kindergartner who is 6 years old. Will language lessons level 1 be an appropriate next step after the completion of Foundations Phonics?
Yes, it's skill-based, so it'll transition smoothly into that.
And if so, is it planned to be released by August?
Level 1, yeah, level 1 is being worked on. It'll be released, probably available by April.
Also, are there suggested readers or books that go along with the lessons for Foundations Phonics and Language Lessons 1?
I don't believe so. Just to clarify, the reason we don't do book lists, our staff is working pretty hard to get out as much curriculum as we humanly possibly can, and at the quality that we need to. To actually go through and review other books, we don't feel comfortable making a lot of recommendations on books, and that we haven't had time to vet. And so I know some of the authors, they'll have book lists sometimes, but we trust you to find books that you believe are appropriate for your family. We would encourage you, even, I know it takes work, but we encourage you to do that, because you'd be amazed at how much worldview comes through. We had a beautiful story. One of the moderators took their daughter to the library. Their daughter wanted to take a book out that was kind of a secret book, and the moment she saw what the book was about, it undermined authority, it had bad attitudes, just that the daughter said, I'm not interested in reading this book. That's a really good thing, because she discerned that that character wasn't something that should be in her life. And so we have to know that these influences, they all plant seeds. And so we're real careful about making recommendations unless we've had time to actually look through it.
Awesome. Over in the live stream, Beth and Brent Gillard said yes, 7:30 a.m. here in Australia.
Ah, top of the day, not top of
Top of the morning.
top of the morning. That's Irish.
That's not even Australian.
Top of the morning.
Look at us. All these Australians think we're crazy now. Who wouldn't think we're crazy?
I think there's a pretty good community going on in Australia, though, for homeschooling. Is there anybody who's from Australia? We seem to be getting a lot of people who are connecting with us from Australia, so that's cool.
On the original post, Jennifer said, my third grade son, just turned 9, is doing language lessons 3 this year. I have not started him on writing strands yet. I didn't think he was quite ready. He was doing great with parts of speech. He loves reading 101 Bible stories and drawing the pictures. When it comes to writing sentences, using words in a sentence and the pages where you write a short story, he really struggles. I can get very little out of him as far as good creative sentences go. He also seems to struggle with writing sentences about what he has read in a book. His actual reading proficiency is good, but the comprehension and writing skills seem to not be there. Do you have any suggestions for this? Should I start writing strands 1?
I would recommend, I would stay in language lessons for living education. That's going to be, if he's doing well there, he's going to continue to practice and get that. If you see any place where he takes a little bit of initiative to start writing, I would be quick to just encourage the fact that he got some thoughts on paper and just keep encouraging him in the direction you want him to go. I would caution you against wanting an adult sentence from a young boy. I think it's great when it happens, but it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it takes a while. We deal with adult authors who have a hard time sometimes writing a complete sentence, and that's why we have editors. So I wouldn't be too concerned because you've got a lot of time to develop those skills. And some people aren't as good as developing their thoughts. One of my sons isn't as good as developing his thoughts on paper, but that's okay. He can still communicate other ways and does. It's hard for him to translate it in a way that goes from here to paper. And so we continue to try to build the skill, but we also build on his strengths.
Right. Over in the app, Luda asked, will there be more God's Design books made into beginner books?
I think Universe, we're close to having that book under contract. Universe and Earth or whatever. That one's close to being under contract. If that happens, it would probably, I would think it might be before summer.
Faith asks, where does Basic Language Skills 1 fit in right now with the new language lessons level 1? That replaces language level 1 replaces Basic Language Skills. Basic Language Skills is really out of print. I think we're printing it still on a printer to fill orders, but as soon as language lessons for living education 1 comes in, Basic Language Skills will no longer be in print. But the language lessons for living education uses the 3 books used in Basic Language Skills. So if you bought those books and you have more students coming, you can use that without having to buy the new books. Lainey is from Australia. She said, bought your curriculum for my 4.5 and 6.5-year-olds from Coorong.
Yeah, we love Coorong.
Over in the original post, Anna asked, how would you use elements of faith in a junior high co-op class? And Dana said, yes, that would be amazing.
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question, Anna. Anna, I think she asked that question just to stump me, to be honest with you. I've never done co-op, so I really don't know. If we have anybody who's proficient in co-op classes with elements of faith, that would be a good one to weigh in on. I have a lot of other solutions with elements of faith, but I really don't know much about how to incorporate it into a co-op class.
At least you're admitting you don't have the answer.
Sorry.
Okay. Next, Jenny asked, what's the best curriculum for ages advanced 2nd through 4th grade that will teach kids how American government works, legislative, executive, judicial, terms like Senate, Congress, all the good stuff.
Yeah, we don't have anything that I'm aware of that does that. I mean, my story touches a little bit on community and people in the community. I think that that's a pretty hard concept for really young students to understand. I mean, we could discuss it and talk about it, but I don't know Maybe they would get it, but what age?
Second through fourth.
Second through fourth. I guess that's a little bit older. America's Story may actually have some of the foundation of that. I think there's some original documents and whatnot.
And it goes, wow. Seriously though, I'm wondering how to best schedule it.
I don't know. I never participated in co-op. We were always kind of the renegade homeschool family. So I'm sure that there are people, and I know co-ops are different. Some meet once a week, right? Some are academy-based models. So I think it's kind of different based on the co-op. But man, I love that book. I just, if you haven't looked at Elements of Faith, great morning basket book. Really, so, okay.
I think it asked a question about grading language lessons, but I think Morgan kind of answered your question.
Okay.
So Lori asked, can you tell us about language lessons 1? We will be finishing up Simply K and Foundations Phonics. Do we need to supplement with an additional reading first grade program?
No, language lessons for living education 1 continues to build on the reading. So.
Mom said to do the activities in co-op.
Oh, we just got the Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Mom.
She said, do the activities in co-op. So do the work, but do the activities in co-op. Do the work independently, but together as activities.
Experiments. Thanks, Mom.
Thank you. That's good. Okay.
Did you answer Lori's question about language lessons 1?
It's like basic language skills. It will continue developing the reading as well.
If you were using writing strands but adding in, say, Jensen's punctuation to help with some problem areas, do you recommend just doing the parts that need work, or maybe doing it on a 2-year schedule so there are not 2 full language arts courses? Thinking of doing something like this for 9th grades, as we love writing strands but just need some punctuation work.
Yeah, I don't think punctuation actually is a full year, even though we might have said it was. Last time I spoke to the author, it's more, I would use it more supplemental. So yeah, you could do that as kind of a supplement practice to go along with another grammar.
Over in the Facebook live stream, Kelly asked, we just started American Story 1 with 8-year-old. We are reading to her and having open discussions about what we have read instead of the lessons and activities that go with it. Do you think this is okay, or should we push her to do everything? We plan to revisit in a few years and do the lessons in the teacher guide when her writing is stronger and she has a better understanding of what is being taught.
As we always say, curriculum is a tool. You are the carpenter, and use the tool the way it best suits your family and your student. If you're enjoying reading from the student book and just having discussions and it feels like your child is retaining, I think that's fantastic. I don't think you need to dot every I and cross every T. That goes with all of our curriculum. Make it your own. Use it the way it works. We used to have a clothing store back in our hometown that their slogan was, we're an educated consumer is our best customer. And I think of that often, where know your child, know their capabilities, know learning styles and then take the tools and build their education using the tools. So yeah, I don't think you need to. Sometimes it might be nice to reinforce it, and sometimes a student may not enjoy it to begin with, and they may really enjoy certain parts of it. So even letting them maybe build some of the things or a certain activity here or there, or using the timelines. Timelines are a great way also to kind of scrapbook, if you will, a visual scrapbook of where you've been and what you've learned.
Awesome. Elena, she said, I'm very curious about the layout of language lessons 1. Will the days be predictable like levels 2 and 3 are, with a story, song, picture, study on day 1, grammar on days 2 and 3, copywork, sketching on day 4, and spelling on day 5? Maybe Mom, you could text me and let me know the answer to that one too. Samantha Kirk said, I'll be homeschooling 2 5th graders, a 7th grader, and a 1st grader, along with a 1-year-old next fall. Full house. And my hopes and dreams, my big 3, 5, and 7th grades are able to do both science and history together. If my hopes and dreams were to come true, what curriculums would you suggest using for those 2 subjects?
Well, it's a wide range. In science, I would definitely go with the God's Design, because that's designed for ages 3rd grade through 8th grade. So that's a perfect fit. I would recommend doing like America's Story. And even though it might be a little bit easier for your 7th grader, something we've done in the past is allow the 7th grader to teach the 3rd grader. Allow them to kind of be the teacher and read it and do the discussions and kind of coordinate the activities. We learn best when we teach. And so that's a great way to reinforce without saying you're doing, elementary school work. You're actually, you're functioning as a teacher, but you're going to gain some real knowledge. So those for sure. I think language is skill-based, and I think it's really hard to do that all together in that wide of a range. Same with math, the skills. Your 7th grader needs to start, developing the skills for higher level math. Your 3rd grader is still developing some very basic skills. And then I think you can also do some very basic apologetics, like the elementary apologetics or that type of thing. You could do that. Now, if you wanted to go to a science like an applied engineering, you could do that, allow your 7th grader to do that, and just let the 3rd grader kind of journal it or participate in the experiments, the activities, and have discussion that way. So maybe you don't require as much work.
Mom shot me a text about the
Awesome. Lifeline.
level 1 language lessons, level 1, whether or not that will be laid out the same. She said yes, the topics are different, and there is only an intro into very basic grammar concepts. The focus is phonics and reading.
Awesome.
There you go. Thanks, Mom. Appreciate it. Susie asked if she can pre-order language lessons 1.
No, we tried really hard last year to do pre-orders, and it just ended up becoming, if the schedules get delayed, and it always, schedules are hard because so many people are involved in creating and proofing and all of that, and then printers and dealing with all of that. Now, when the project is complete and it goes, when it's in-house, we make it available to order.
Over in the Facebook Live, Carla said, definitely not trying to come across as insensitive, but with the passing of Dr. Mitchell, are there any plans to still publish the last 2 books he was working on? Dr.
Mitchell's wife is a brilliant physician as well, and she had a practice and was, she decided to homeschool their children, and so she sacrificed her career to homeschool, but that she helped Dr. Mitchell write those courses. And when Dr. Mitchell passed, of course, my understanding is that she told him, you're not going to get out of this. But he did, unfortunately, and we miss him. But she is continuing to write the courses. And so we're real excited about that, because that series will be completed by the Mitchell family. So right. What an awesome testimony. So yes.
Right. Mom also said the preview for language lessons 1 should be roughly 3 weeks.
Okay, awesome.
She kind of expected then. Megan asked, should math facts be memorized like addition and subtraction? My son is having a horrible time with this.
So it depends on the age of the student, the capabilities of the student. Why we use right brain learning is because it's a different style. Sometimes we learn math facts with a blank picture. So 2 + 2 = blank. Well, the brain only sees blank. And some students do really well with seeing 2 + 2 = 4. Now they have the mental picture. That's why we use a right brain flashcard system. But some students take a little bit longer. Some students struggle. I was a principal of a private school where we had somebody come in, and they had some games. I think it was like Math Blaster. And I know for our family, when we had a business, my programmer developed a flashcards for us that I would use with you guys, where I would just kind of put you on there a couple times a week that would do kind of some gamification of math facts to kind of reinforce it. That kind of helped just build those brain skills. I mean, developing a connection in the brain takes work, and it's a process. And so one method may work for one student and may not work as well for another student.
A couple more questions, wrapping up the last few. Jackie asked, what is the timeline for introducing the geography curriculums that will be available for the fall? We don't need them until fall, but for planning purposes, it would be nice to know what Master Books plan to have available. Yeah, so Master Books purchased Knowledge Quest. Our team has been working pretty hard to get our hands around the whole project and what it's going to take. And I think Mom was in a meeting earlier today
they're kind of doing the layout of it all.
Shout out to Mom.
Yep. So I don't have good timetables on it. Some of the products, I think, like Math Trek is available. There's some different products on the website that are available. So you can purchase those, but they're not in the master books format. And I know somebody asked, are we going to change those over or lightly revise them? Yeah, we're going to do a pretty good. I'm excited. The content is good, but I see some areas where the master books method could be implemented. And I think I got to see a little bit of kind of what Kristen and the editorial team is looking at, and Tim, and I think we're going to bring a lot to the table to make that a great historical geography and geography supplement courses. So I don't have a good timetable because it's the purchase, just, we're still in the kind of the white water of the purchase, but a lot more information will be coming. So I can sound somewhat intelligent. I'm going to say best guess is late summer to fall, maybe
Early
the first
fall.
releases, early fall, maybe first releases from a knowledgeable source. Thank goodness for texting right now.
Updated books of the updates.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom. Kasha asked, are there still plans for multiplication and division right blank flashcards?
Yes.
And the last one on the original post, Cassandra said, I have a third grader that completely freaks out when it comes to formal paragraph and essay writing. He is otherwise a great story writer and loves to write comics. What are the best books or the best way to get him to just write and not be so freaked out about it?
I'd say that if he enjoys writing stories in third grade, that's an accomplishment. If he can write his ideas out on paper and his sentences are good, focus on sentences. Most curriculums in third grade are focused on good sentences, not paragraphs or essays. Third grade, typically, you're looking at developing those skills a little bit later on. So at least that's my understanding. Mom may weigh indifferent, but
she's saying she would comment in there, but because you guys share an account, it messes up the video.
Yeah, so we'll go in and comment on some of these if there needs to be some clarification. Right. But I would say the biggest thing to do is just continue to encourage him to continue to write and get his ideas out, and especially if his word choices are powerful, praise him for that. All right. So in speech, the words we speak, persuasion is such an important thing. And the way we phrase questions or the way we choose our words wisely help move an audience in an entirely different direction. One word can shift the entire direction of it negatively. And so teaching our kids to really look at the words that they're using, and are there any words that maybe made their brain go to a bad place or a sad place or a happy place, and encouraging that in their words. That's at that age.
Okay. Our Australian friends, the Gillerts, would like to know, will those resources suit international customers, or are they mostly US-based history and geography? She's talking about the Knowledge Quests.
Well, Knowledge Quest, actually, there's different tracks that'll be developed. I believe there's an ancient track, there's a medieval track, then there's a modern track, and those are world geography courses. There is some that will be relevant to the U.S. geography, but I believe the world schoolers will also benefit from that series.
And Chris asked if there will be high school level geography.
The math track is designed for grades like 1 through 12, so it's kind of a multi-age, I believe, that it could be used. Again, I haven't seen, it's only in the beginning stages, so I know where it is and what it's kind of marketed as, but then when we get it and break it all down and look at the feedback that's been in the market from previous versions, then we kind of make our hard decisions then.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions. There were a couple in the app, but Desiree was kind of jumping in there and answering those. So
okay, awesome.
All set. It was a long video. It was an hour.
Well, thank you for spending Thursday. It's not Thursday.
Oh, that would be nice. Tuesday.
Thank you for spending Tuesday afternoon with us, and we sincerely appreciate your time and being part of this community, and we certainly love being part of your community. If you're not in the app, we'd love to have you over there because I'm really excited about, we have a little more ability to connect with people differently in the app. I voice it this way. Facebook group is kind of Sunday morning church, and we have to stick to we have to have a little more structure, right? To kind of keep a little more order. In the app, we have targeted groups and we can allow for a little more discussion. We still don't want to encourage outside links and haters, I mean, obviously, but we're able to enjoy, it's almost like going from Sunday morning church to small group. And so the app is our small group. So come on over to small groups if you're not there already. We hope to see you there. And that's it. All right, guys. God bless. Have a good weekend. I'm there. I am there. Oh, man.
It's a long week for you.
It is, because I'm on Thursday. I'm like, tomorrow's my Friday. Woo. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.